thank you very much for attending today, and I am delighted to have the opportunity to speak with you about promotion of physical activity in children, specifically in the school setting. My name is Russ Pate. I'm with the Arnold School of Public Health at the University of South Carolina, where we have a group called the Children's Physical Activity Research Group that has been studying physical activity in children for many years. Much of our work has been in kids, in schools, and in childcare centers. And I'm very pleased to have a chance to speak with you about some of the things that I think we've learned over the years, and some of the policies and practices that are now widely recommended for promoting physical activity in children through initiatives that operate in schools and childcare centers. In the next few minutes, I'm going to provide some basic background that I think sort of underlies our work in this area. I'll be addressing the issue of interventions and how they are thought to be effective in increasing physical activity in children. I'll be focusing primarily on school-based strategies for promoting physical activity in school children. Also, we'll say a few things about promotion of physical activity in childcare centers. First of all, some basic background. A fundamental reason that we're interested in this issue in the first place is that we know that physical activity provides very important health benefits to children and adolescents. We know that more physically active kids have higher levels of cardiorespiratory and muscular fitness. They have better risk profiles for cardiometabolic disease risk factors such as blood pressure and blood lipids, insulin levels, and blood glucose, for example. Of course, we're very concerned about avoidance of overweight and obesity in children and others in our society right now. And it's clear that more physically active children are at lower risk of developing overweight or obesity. Bone health is a major consideration in our society now, and it's been shown that better bone health is an outcome associated with higher levels of physical activity in kids. And brain health, of course, is of great interest these days. And we know that kids who are more active show better attention characteristics, better memory, lower risk of anxiety and depression. So they're very important health benefits associated with physical activity in kids. And that's sort of an underlying factor that prompts us to be interested in promoting physical activity in kids. Because of that evidence, our federal government in the US has issued guidelines on physical activity for children and adolescents. This was first done in 2008. The guidelines were updated in 2018, will be updated again in 2028. The federal recommendation is that children engage in aerobic or sort of endurance activity 60 minutes per day at moderate to vigorous intensity. That's the equivalent of brisk walking or more intense. In addition, they should engage in muscle strengthening activities 3 days per week and bone strengthening activities for 3 days per week. So these are process outcomes, physical activity outcomes that are important targets for our work in promoting physical activity in young people. Unfortunately, we know from large-scale surveys that many children in our society do not meet those guidelines. These are data for high school children from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, most recent publication in 2019, pre-COVID. And this shows that of that sample, only 44% of the sample indicated that they were attaining that guideline of 60 minutes of aerobic activity on 5 or more days per week. The prevalence of meeting that guideline is also low when we measure it objectively with motion sensors, accelerometers, which are sort of like Fitbits for research purposes. Again, it's less than half of children at each age group, and far below half in middle school and high school age kids meet the physical activity guideline when that is assessed with an objective device-based measurement. Kids aren't as fit as we think they should be. We've adopted through the FitnessGram program cardiorespiratory fitness standards for children and youth, and our group here in the University of South Carolina works with the FitnessGram data from South Carolina, and we find in those surveys that many children do not meet the the fitness standards that are prescribed in the FitnessGram protocol. Only about a third of girls and about half of boys in a recent survey met that standard. So the question is, given that many of our kids are not as physically active as recommended, nor are they as physically fit as recommended, what can we do about it? And this has been the focus of a great deal of research over the last 20 to 25 years. And I think we've learned a lot. And I think we've learned some things that, that we can say are workable and do work if they are properly implemented. So there have been important sort of reviews of this scientific literature. One published just a few years ago by the Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion in the Department of Health and Human Services, which examined many strategies that have been tried for increasing physical activity among youth. And in addition, a very prestigious community guide to promoting health has reviewed the literature in this area as well, and identified enhanced school-based physical education, community-wide campaigns, and creation of or enhanced access to places for physical activity as important and effective ways of promoting physical activity. In that federal study aimed at identifying factors that effectively promote physical activity in kids, two were found to have sufficient evidence. They were multi-component school-based interventions and enhanced physical education. For many of the other strategies that have been tried, the evidence was rated as either suggestive or emerging, in some cases insufficient. But clearly there's evidence to support strongly the effectiveness of some approaches. The evidence is positive, but more evidence is needed for some of them. And in some cases, there's not enough data at this point to evaluate them. So then the question becomes, well, what does work? What policies are there that can address the problem that we're trying to address, which is helping a lot more kids be physically active and meet the federal guidelines for physical activity? So there are a number of approaches have been tried for promoting physical activity in kids, and many of them have been setting-based, such as schools, preschools, community settings, family and home, and primary care. I'm going to be focusing today primarily on the school and preschool setting, and we'll be working from some of the previously published documents, including this one from the Department of Health and Human Services. So first of all, for the school setting, as I mentioned, multi-component school interventions have been shown to be effective. And the question then is, what are these? What do they look like? And they begin by providing enhanced physical education that increases lesson time, is delivered by well-trained specialists, and emphasizes instructional practices that provide substantial doses of moderate to vigorous physical activity. So the kind of the centerpiece of school-based intervention should be high-quality physical education programs that in which kids are highly physically active when they're there in PE classes. A second element of these multi-component interventions is provision of classroom physical activity breaks. In the last decade or so, this is opportunities for classroom activity breaks have become much more common and institutionalized in many schools, particularly at the elementary school level. But what this means is that the teacher takes a break from traditional instructional activities and may make use of some music or video, or she or he may actually lead the class in an activity that's performed right there in the classroom. A third approach is to develop activity lessons that are kids participate in before and after school, and including active transport to school. And this is sort of an approach that's is known to be practical, feasible in many neighborhoods in the U.S., but active transport to school is not nearly as prevalent as we wish it was. Many kids arrive at school well before classes start or stay at school after classes end in the afternoon. And in some schools, physical activity programs are made available during those times, and that's recommended. Kids, like all the rest of us, need good behavioral skills for becoming active, maintaining high levels of activity. And we feel that schools, through physical education programs and classroom activities, should develop those skills by engaging enjoyably in forms of physical activity that they like and that they feel competent to engage in. And in addition, a good many schools provide after-school space and equipment for programs to take place. In some cases, community-based providers come to the school to deliver programs in the after-school time block. In some cases, kids are transported from the school to a community location for such programs. So a little more here on the enhanced physical education component, which itself has been shown to be effective in promoting kids' physical activity. That's either independently or as part of a comprehensive multi-component program. So enhanced physical education programs are aimed at developing and implementing a well-designed physical education curriculum that meets national standards for curriculum in PE. They enhance instructional practices to provide substantial doses of moderate to vigorous physical activity. There's been concern over the years that kids sometimes are not as physically active when they're in PE classes as they could and should be. And many teachers need ongoing training to develop the strategies and approaches that will result in kids having the kind of experience in PE that we believe they will benefit from. Another element of these comprehensive programs is active transportation to and from school. These often involve school personnel in the intervention efforts. That may involve activities like walking school buses where parents and teachers walk with kids to school, or cover crossing lanes across streets and highways that make it safe and feasible for kids to walk or ride bike to school. Often this does require education and encouragement and liaison with parents so that they're reassured that that kids will be properly supervised and safe while they're actively being transported or transporting themselves to school. Classroom activity breaks are a key element in comprehensive physical activity programs. This involves adding short bouts of physical activity to existing classroom activities. It also involves encouraging activity during recess, lunch, other break periods when kids have an opportunity to be active. And it also involves promoting an environmental or systems change approaches at the school level, such as providing physical activity and game equipment, teacher training, that's classroom teacher training, and organized physical activity during breaks before and after school. All of these things have been shown to be feasible. They all happen in some schools. They don't happen in all or most schools. And, I think part of the challenge here is to, translate these, disseminate them so that these strategies are widely used in most schools across the country. In addition, our work here at the University of South Carolina and work done by others around the country has focused in recent years on strategies for increasing physical activity in kids in preschool and childcare centers. And some of the strategies that operate in that setting involve providing portable play equipment on playgrounds and other play spaces so that kids are encouraged to be active when they have the opportunity, providing staff with training in the delivery of either structured physical activity sessions for kids in the classroom setting that aim to increase the time allocated for such sessions. So again, this is an area where progress has been made in recent years. I think structured activity sessions in childcare settings has become fairly common, but there's a lot of turnover in staffing in preschools. And so there's an ongoing need for training of early childhood educators to deliver such programs in the childcare setting. In addition, it's possible to integrate physically active teaching and learning activities into the pre-academic instructional routine. So this is different from classroom activity breaks or structured activity sessions. This involves the teacher adopting teaching learning strategies that aim at helping kids master the pre-academic goals of early childhood education while they are being physically active. And there are a good many of these strategies that have been tried and tested and found to be enjoyable for the kids and feasible in the classroom setting. So this is an area where, again, there's been development over the recent years, but probably a need for a lot more training and support to incorporate these strategies in the classroom setting. And one thing we know for sure about physical activity behavior in kids, that is they tend to be more active when they're outside than when they're inside. And so increasing the time that kids in the childcare setting spend outside, either in free play, recess type environments, or in more structured, planned activity sessions that would take place outside. But there are times when we think that early childhood educators are a little too conservative about the time that they will take kids outside, a little too concerned about extreme weather and so on, which rarely is extreme enough to really preclude kids being outside. So I think we need to try to develop the social norm that kids should be outside as much as possible and physically active while they're there. So again, I want to endorse the comprehensive school physical activity model, which really sort of pulls a number of these initiatives into a conceptual framework. It looks like this. Now, CSPAP, Comprehensive School Physical Activity Program model, is being widely promoted across the country now for school age and preschool age kids. It includes physical education, physical activity before and after school, physical activity during the school day, classroom exercise breaks, and so on, but also includes staff involvement. I think we know that teachers who are themselves active and enjoy activity are probably better at helping their students engage in activity and be active on a regular basis. And then, of course, schools, operate within a community and in connection with the parents and family members of the children that attend the school. And so in this comprehensive model, all of those elements are drawn in, coordinated such that children are physically active, certainly in the school setting, but outside and in community and home settings as well. So in conclusion, I think the evidence supports the contention that physical activity provides very important health benefits to kids. We now have federal physical activity guidelines that point to the levels of activity that kids should engage in. We know that a lot of kids in the US are not meeting those guidelines at the present time. They spend a lot of time in the school setting, and so the school is a very attractive setting for ensuring that kids get the kind of physical activity experiences that they need, both to be active as kids and also to have good positive experiences with physical activity so that they'll be more likely to remain physically active after they leave the school setting. There are tried and true methods for promoting physical activity in the school and preschool settings that have been tested and shown to be effective. They include comprehensive multi-component school-based interventions. They include modified, upgraded physical education programs, which emphasize participation in moderate to vigorous physical activity. And they include classroom exercise breaks, activity before and after school, and through active transportation to school for kids that are, in the appropriate age range for that. In preschools, we want kids to be active in the classroom, both with classroom exercise breaks and physically active teaching learning strategies, but also spend lots of time outside in free play and in some cases structured play activities in the outside setting. So in conclusion, I appreciate everyone's attention very much and wish you the very best in pursuing some of these strategies for promoting physical activity in the kids that you work with. Thank you very much for your attention today.